Hi there, it's Sue Thomas here from Functional Nutrition Formula, where we believe that every health and wellness professional should have access to straightforward and uncomplicated nutrition knowledge to help their clients in a much bigger way. Today our focus is nutrition and hormones and asking the question, is the missing link in your business nutrition and hormones? Do you know that if you were to improve your nutrition and hormones knowledge, you would be able to help your clients and serve your clients in a much bigger way? Our focus will be to help you discover the different hormones and how they are involved with fat burning. We will also look at the health of the liver and whether a sluggish liver can be directly linked to hormone imbalance, and then help you get clear on how you can really advise your clients with the right nutrition and the right hormone advice to help them get a much better result with us. Before we do that, though, we have to get clear on how nutrition and hormones sits within the kind of overall picture of optimal health. Now, it's much like a jigsaw. We don't see the bigger picture until all those pieces are in place. And we need to apply this to the body and apply this to how our body works as a very sophisticated machine. If we don't have all those pieces in the right order and in the right place, we won't be able to get that clearer picture. So making sure that our exercise is spot on and is the right type of exercise, making sure the foods that we are consuming are the right foods, nutrient-dense foods, making sure that the choices we make within our lifestyle, such as smoking or drinking coffee or alcohol, how those affect us internally as far as our overall health and hormone balance is concerned. And then also whether we're participating in using functional nutrition like multivitamins or omega-3s, for example. When there's one piece of that jigsaw that is out of alignment, what can happen is this has an effect on the body, which means that we have this very careful balance called the wear versus repair balance that can easily go out of alignment. So if it goes out of alignment, if we're not providing the body with enough nutrition, what can happen is we can start to see degenerative conditions coming to the surface. So, a good example is PMT or menopause, for example. These are symptoms coming to the surface, and they're the body's way of telling us externally that we don't have enough of the right nutrients to allow for internal balance. So ensuring that we are consuming enough of the right nutrients will allow for this wear versus repair balance to go back into alignment. So really focusing on the quality of the nutrition is absolutely key if we're going to prevent some of these degenerative illnesses coming to the surface. Ask yourself, how many people do you know these days that die of old age? Most people die of some form of degenerative condition, and that is simply because we've had years of inadequate nutrition or inadequate nutrients being put into the system to allow for that wear versus repair balance to stay in alignment. And wear versus repair is a natural process. It's a natural aging process, and it is going to go misaligned as we age because we need more nutrients as we age. But there is no reason why it should go so massively out of alignment that we have degenerative illnesses coming to the surface. And hormone imbalance is just a symptom of the fact that the nutrients that we are providing our body with are far less than the body needs in terms of the amount of repair that it needs to carry out. So we've got three main reasons for the fact that we're not consuming enough nutrient-dense food anymore when this is having a consequence as far as hormone balance is concerned. And the first one is environmental changes. We've had massive environmental changes in the last 100 years. Soil mineral content has depleted massively, and one of the main reasons for this is that we now no longer practice crop rotation in the way that we would have done 100, 150 years ago. And that to some extent is to do with large supermarkets expecting farmers to produce crops year round and in large quantities. But what that means is that if we're not practicing crop rotation, the nutrients are not allowed to be fixed back in the soil. They're not given the opportunity to be fixed back in the soil. And so consequently, when the crop grows, it's not taking up those trace minerals that it would have done had crop rotation been practiced. Now, a really good example is magnesium. At least 70% of the soils in this country are magnesium deficient. And magnesium is a really, really crucial nutrient required for natural hormone balance. A great way of getting more magnesium into the soil if someone is growing their own vegetables is to dig Epsom salts into the soil and grow the crops in those Epsom salts. But obviously, that's only if someone is growing vegetables in their back garden. It's not going to happen on a massively wide scale. And also, the use of pesticides means that the microbes in the soil that would have formed the nutrients, the trace minerals, are actually being killed along with the pests that the pesticides are designed for. So that in itself means that our trace mineral content, trace minerals are crucial for nourishing the whole of the hormonal system. That in itself means that our trace mineral uptake is nowhere near as high as it needs to be to allow for natural hormone balance. And plus, pesticide use puts a toxicity into our system as us at the top of that food chain. We're consuming those crops that have been sprayed with pesticides. We take those pesticide residues on board, and even the minutest amounts can cause endocrine disruption, can lead to hormone imbalance. So our first reason for all these hormonal changes taking place is that the environmental practices that we now see as far as farming is concerned don't allow for the trace minerals to form in the soil and increase the amount of toxicity that we have on board, we take on board, that compromises the endocrine system's function. And the second reason is food production changes. We've had higher demands for food. You know, fruit and vegetables used to be the natural bit of the supermarket, and everything else was processed. Now, actually, the fruit and vegetables bit is quite processed as well. We're ignoring natural growing seasons, so we're forcing vegetables and fruit to grow outside of their natural growing season, which means they grow big, but they don't necessarily have the nutrient density. We're keeping foods in cold storage for longer periods of time, and all that time they're kept in cold storage, their nutrient quality depletes. And we're harvesting fruit and vegetables earlier. Bananas are a great example. They're being freighted big, long distances, so they're picked before they're ripe, so that they end up being ripe when they hit our fruit bowl. But the forming of the nutrients in them takes place when they're ripening on the tree, not when they're ripening in our fruit bowl. And then lastly, lifestyle changes. We have a diet now that's been created for large conglomerates for their profit rather than for our nutrition. And they know that we will buy this food because life is stressed, it's highly pressured, we've got less time than ever before. And so we're buying foods that are processed, that contain salts and fats and all sorts of rubbish. But even the stuff that we think is good for us, like freshly chopped vegetables, the fact that those vegetables have been chopped means that the nutrients in those vegetables have depleted because of the fact that they've been exposed to the air for a unnaturally long period of time. And as I've talked about already, all of the toxicity is acting as a hormone inhibitor, but then also stress can act as a hormone inhibitor in our system and can throw hormones massively out of alignment. We're cooking food for far too long than ever before, so it's destroying the vitamin content. We're buying foods that have very low nutritional value. So, like I said, supermarket, you go in and the large majority of the supermarket is made up of processed foods, pre-prepared foods. We don't cook using the natural ingredients as much anymore. But also we've demonized fats for a long, long time in the Western world. For at least 30 years, we've had this hang up over fats being bad for us as far as our heart health is concerned. But the reality of good fats and the omegas, omega-3, 6, they're really, really important for hormone balance because they provide the body with the building blocks that it needs to create the hormones in the first place. So long periods of time with a low fat diet can be contributory to the hormone imbalance that we're seeing in society today, because we don't provide the body with the raw materials it needs in the form of the good quality fats. So now we've got these pressures on hormones in the 21st century. So we've got a lack of trace minerals from the soil, and we've talked about magnesium already. We've got the toxicity from the pesticides, but also from the water that we drink and the air that we breathe. All of these are endocrine disruptors that come on board. We've got weight gain through too many calories and not enough nutrients. An example is what we call type B malnutrition, where we have calorie dense food but nutrient poor food, and this is not giving the body what it needs. All the external stress that we're under leads to throwing hormones out of alignment with a hormone called cortisol, which I'm going to look at in just a second. And then sedentary lifestyle, so not doing enough exercise or doing insufficient or incorrect exercise, which again can lead to stress on the system. And you're going to get really clear on how important it is to manage stress over the next 15 minutes or so. So hormones themselves are the most powerful chemicals in the body. They all function on a feedback loop, a feedback system. So they basically function on what's called an axis, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a minute. But what they do is they instruct the body cells what to do. So they tell the rest of the body how it should function, basically, with the pituitary gland being the conductor of the orchestra. So here you can see this axis, and this is for the adrenals, the HPA axis, the adrenal axis. So we've got the hypothalamus, which is the nerve center, if you like, where it picks up all the nerve responses and sends a message to the pituitary that we need to start producing more adrenaline. And so consequently, the pituitary then sends a message to the adrenals to produce cortisol, and cortisol is a hormone that we'll discuss in a little bit more detail in a minute. So that is what's called the HPA axis. If it was the thyroid gland, for example, it would be the HPT axis. So all hormones are on an axis with the hypothalamus and the pituitary and communicating via other hormones to get the final hormone produced. The pituitary gland in particular is very, very easily affected by those heavy metals and chemicals and the chemical estrogens that we have in our environment around us. So as I've said before, with the pesticides spraying on the foods and the crops that we're consuming, those pesticides, when we take them on board, can have an effect on the function of the pituitary gland and the pituitary gland's ability to be able to send out the right messages to the rest of the endocrine system. And plus, the pituitary gland also needs lots and lots of B vitamins and vitamin C for effective nourishment. Now, recommended daily amount of vitamin C in this country, in the Western world, is 60 milligrams a day. We actually need about 1,000 milligrams a day minimum to nourish the pituitary gland effectively. And B vitamins are easily depleted when we are under periods of stress. So, as we all know, life is very stressful, and this is one of the reasons why vitamin B or the B vitamins are decreasing in our system, because we're using them for the stress, for the cortisol, rather than nourishing the top of that axis, if you like, as far as the pituitary gland is concerned. So the first hormone we're going to look at is cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It's a very dominant hormone, and it's the first one we need to understand if we're going to help our clients get better results. So here you can see the HPA axis that we've already talked about, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands, all talking to each other. They need to be working together effectively, communicating effectively if we're going to manage cortisol balance in the system. And cortisol is on that feedback loop that tells the pituitary to switch off the hormone producing adrenaline in the first place and cortisol in the first place. So HPA axis, adrenaline and cortisol is being released in response to stress. So adrenaline is released in response to stress. Cortisol is released to manage the level of adrenaline that's being produced. But if we've got increasing levels of adrenaline in the system, we're going to have increasing levels of cortisol. And the higher cortisol rises in our system, the more damage it can do in terms of becoming toxic. So where are these stresses coming from that are leading to a cortisol release? We've got a number of things. We've already talked about inadequate nutrition and the mineral deficiency and the toxic environment. All of those are stresses within the body that will lead to a cortisol release. Cortisol is a glucocorticoid hormone, which means it's required for repair across the system. So we do need it. It's a really, really important hormone. But if it rises too high, then it becomes toxic in the system. It can actually do more harm than good. And then stresses on the body, nutrition, relationship, lifestyle choices. Now, one of the biggest things in lifestyle choices is the use of tablets and phones late at night. the blue light that comes from those tablets and phones hits the eye, and it leads to a stimulation, which is in turn leads to a release of cortisol. Now, cortisol naturally rises through the course of the morning and then starts to tail off as the afternoon goes on, and then should be dropping right off into the evening, so that our body can produce melatonin, which then sends us to sleep. But if we're using tablets late at night, cortisol stays high, which interferes with the release of melatonin, which means we don't sleep effectively. And that in itself is another stress on the body. You'll know that if you've had a really bad night's sleep, often what you end up doing the next day is craving sugar. But craving sugar because there's a big cortisol imbalance, which leads to an insulin release, which I'll talk about in just a second. So stresses on the body include lifestyle choices, busy lives, and the incorrect form of exercise. All of these lead to a cortisol release. Cortisol is a dominant hormone and will steal from the other steroidal hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And it will steal the building blocks from them, which means that we can see issues like low fertility coming to the surface, the inability to build lean tissue and stuff like that. So cortisol is a really important hormone to get under control. If we're going to help our clients get results, we need to manage stress release techniques, but also reduce the amount of nutrition that is going to lead to stress internally. So improving the quality of our nutrition, improving the nutrients in our nutrition to ensure that stress internally is kept under control. And then lastly, medication, as far as stress is concerned. Medication is a form of stress on the system. It's a chemical that we put into our bodies, and it leads to a stress response by the body. And we're handing out medication left, right, and centre these days, it seems to be. But we've got some really, really crucial ones there. Aspirin triples the vitamin C excretion, triples the speed with which vitamin C is excreted out of the system. Yet we already know vitamin C is crucial for nourishing the pituitary gland. Antidepressants compromise the body's ability to absorb vitamin B. Vitamins B, or B vitamins, are required to nourish the whole of the nervous system in times of stress. So if we're under permanent stress, we need permanent sources of B vitamins, but we need permanent sources of B vitamins, but they're being compromised in their absorption if we're taking other forms of medication like antidepressants. So really important to understand that medication, thyroxine, antidepressants, you name it, that will be having a stress on the system and will be leading to a cortisol release. So insulin is the sugar balance hormone. So insulin is released in response to any form of carbohydrate, whether it's a complex carbohydrate or whether it's a simple carbohydrate in the form of a refined sugar. It's released into the bloodstream to stop blood sugars rising too high, and it's released from the pancreas. It has an opposing hormone called glucagon, which stops blood sugars dropping too low. So the two work in tandem with each other. One stops the sugars going too high, one stops the sugars going too low. If insulin rises too high, what it will do is block the absorption of leptin across the blood-brain barrier. Now, leptin is a hormone that's released when we eat by our fat cells to tell the brain when we've had enough to eat. But as insulin rises under continual periods of stress in relation to cortisol rising, it can damage the relationship then that leptin has across the blood-brain barrier in order to tell the brain that we're full. And so consequently, we never get that feeling of fullness. We never get a message to say stop eating. And for someone that is carrying extra weight, actually that leptin message telling the brain to stop eating can be a real issue in terms of them actually reducing the consumption of calories, if you like. And when insulin continues to rise in the system, so if cortisol is in the system in response to adrenaline, and adrenaline is leading to the release of glycogen from the muscles. If we've got continual glycogen being emptied into the bloodstream in the response to stress, insulin will also rise to try and bring those blood sugars under control. And if insulin is rising, the cells don't want any more sugar passing through to them because they're saturated because there's too much sugar in the bloodstream. So the receptors on the cells shut down and we become what's called insulin resistant. So we need more and more sugars in the bloodstream to get less and less sugars through into the cells for energy production. So this is one of the reasons why when someone carries too much weight, they can feel tired a lot of the time. But also insulin and cortisol together, when both hormones are present in high levels, they will lead to the fixing of sugars, conversion of sugars into triglycerides, which will then be fixed as fats in the fat cells. So insulin and cortisol together are not a great combination. So helping our clients manage their weight has to be a protocol of managing cortisol, so stress, and managing insulin at the same time and balancing blood sugars. And insulin also prevents the process of lipolysis taking place, and lipolysis is the fat burning process. So it blocks that fat burning process from taking place. So we are predominantly a sugar burner. So we're constantly eating carbohydrate because that's the body's main source of fuel rather than a fat burner. Because lipolysis is not taking place because insulin is too high. So bringing insulin under control along with cortisol is crucial to help a client get to optimal hormonal health. And then thyroxine is the metabolism hormone. Thyroxine itself is produced in the thyroid gland there in the neck, and it is the first hormone to express an outward sign that something internally is not right. The thyroid gland needs iodine to function, and it will pick iodine out of the bloodstream with the use of a specific process within the thyroid gland. And in doing so, it can also pick out accidentally, if you like, some of the toxins, the xenoestrogens that we are exposed to in our environment. And those xenoestrogens can compromise the fully functioning of the thyroid gland, which is why so many women are now on thyroxine, because their thyroid gland is not functioning effectively, and that is because it's related to the level of toxicity in our system. So if we can improve the toxicity in our system, get rid of some of the chemical estrogens and other heavy metals in our system, we can massively improve the functioning of our thyroid gland and therefore massively improve the metabolism. It's also very easily disrupted by constantly high cortisol levels. So as you can see, that cortisol is becoming present through all of the hormones. Cortisol will block the conversion of the inactive thyroxine T4 into T3. 80% of that conversion is taking place in the liver, and it's blocked by cortisol if cortisol levels are too high, which again is another reason why females will be on thyroxine. Thyroxine's also, or thyroid glands, also very, very finely tuned and very easily affected by gluten levels in the system as well. So helping a client to manage gluten intake is crucial too if we're going to help them manage their thyroid function. And a sluggish liver won't be able to metabolize gluten effectively, but it also won't be able to metabolize the chemicals that we're exposed to effectively. So we've got to get that liver working properly if we're going to allow the thyroid function to realign itself and help a client reduce dependency on thyroxine and improve metabolism for overall wellness. And then estrogen and progesterone, the two fertility hormones. These two hormones work very closely together. But if estrogen is predominant, then it will lead to weight gain. It is a fat storage hormone. It does one of the types of estrogen is predominantly produced in the fat cells. The three types of estrogen, one is produced in the fat cells, two of which are also produced in the ovaries and the adrenal cortex. And the one that's produced in the fat cells is the estrogen that we see as we age into our 40s, which is why we see more weight gain in females who are heading into their 40s. But also estrogen can be mimicked by chemical estrogens, xenoestrogens in the environment, which can scramble messages and send the wrong messages out to the body. One glass of wine can compromise the liver's ability to clear estrogen out of the system by up to 30%. So if we are exposed to lots of chemical estrogens and we're also consuming alcohol, then those chemical estrogens won't be cleared out of the system. They will be stored in the fat cells. And the more storage of estrogen in the fat cells, the more the body releases an enzyme called aromatase, which will convert testosterone into estrogen, so creating more estrogen, more fat-storing hormone. Testosterone in particular, obviously we need it in females as well as in men. It's much higher in men than it is in women. But if you see men with moves, for example, this is a sign that they are estrogen dominant, and they will remain estrogen dominant until they've got that level of estrogen under control, brought it right back down, because that aromatase is always going to be converting their testosterone into further estrogen. So they're not going to be building enough of the lean tissue creating hormone, and they're going to be creating a lot more of the fat storing hormone. Progesterone is the hormone that sits alongside estrogen, and it improves serotonin production, and obviously serotonin is the feel good hormone, and if we don't have enough progesterone, then we're going to struggle with feelings of depression and low mood. Progesterone is one of the hormones that cortisol steals from if cortisol is particularly high and it needs more building blocks. So again, a very fine link with the fertility hormones and cortisol predominantly in the system. And then lastly, looking at testosterone in a little bit more detail, it is the fat burning hormone. It is responsible for maintaining muscle mass, for improving mood, and for increasing energy levels. And what happens when we produce testosterone, the free testosterone will move into the cells to manufacture and support the energy production, or to allow for muscle building. But if we have a unhealthy liver, then we will produce a substance called sex hormone binding globulin, which will attach to the testosterone and prevent it from moving into the cells, to prevent the muscle building process. So therefore, having a clean liver is really important. Not only is it really important for estrogen progesterone production, but for males it's important for testosterone production if we're going to increase lean tissue and improve the fat burning process. So looking at the liver very quickly, the liver performs over 500 different functions, from metabolizing fat all the way through to converting food groups into other food groups, like sugars into fats, for example. It removes and gets rid of waste. It's really important for hormone balance, blood sugar regulation, all the things we've talked about. So the liver is crucial to having the hormonal system functioning effectively. Symptoms of a sluggish liver, some really good ones there: PMT, hormone imbalances, elevated cholesterol, headaches. Headaches is a really good example of a liver being sluggish. The more toxic we are, the more outwardly the symptoms come to the surface, headaches being one of them. And if the liver is not working properly, it's not going to be able to clear the toxins from the system. So taking an ibuprofen, for example, to manage a headache will actually be compromising the liver's ability to clear the toxins out of the system that are causing the headache in the first place. So getting the liver working properly is absolutely crucial. It's going to help our clients achieve proper hormone balance. So if we're going to have a 3-step protocol that's going to help a client get a good result as far as hormone balance is concerned, the first thing we need to do is cleanse the liver. Get the liver working properly. Some simple things you can do: all the cruciferous vegetables, so all the green vegetables, green leafy vegetables, cauliflower, other vegetables, Brussels, all those kind of things are great for supporting the liver, the health of the liver. They provide the liver with all the antioxidants that are important for liver health. And also things like lemon water first thing in the morning can help to flush the liver out and get the liver working properly again. But good quality proteins as well are crucial for the whole detoxification process that the liver goes through. Then we need good quality vitamins and minerals to ensure that the whole of the endocrine system is being nourished effectively. Omega-3 fats to provide the building blocks for hormone balance, and antioxidants to reduce inflammation in the system and therefore reduce the stress internally that's going to allow cortisol levels to come down. So multivitamins and minerals that we need, a broad range, a broad spectrum that we need for so many purposes, from detoxification through to fertility, through to circulation and joint health. All of the vitamins are required at certain different levels. However, the RDAs are nowhere near enough in today's society, with today's lifestyle, with 21st century living as it is. We are under so much more stress that we actually need more nutrients to nourish the whole of the system. So the RDAs are barely applicable anymore, because we need optimum daily intakes in amounts that are going to nourish our whole system. So the fact that people are on antidepressants is a real example that we're lacking in the B vitamins that nourishes the whole of the nervous system, for example. So multivitamins and minerals really are our insurance policy to get our whole system nourished effectively with the right trace minerals, the right vitamins. And most people are mineral deficient because of the farming practices that we see today, and minerals directly link into the hormonal system. So chromium for the pancreas, iodine for the thyroid gland. You know that we need so many trace minerals for the whole of the endocrine system. So encouraging a client to take a good quality multivitamin is absolutely crucial to allow for hormone balance to come back into alignment, to make sure we're getting, most importantly, those trace minerals in our diet. And then omega-3 essential fatty acids. We have lots of omega-6. We don't have anywhere near enough omega-3 in our diets these days. And omega-3s are crucial for the permeability of the cell membranes to allow nutrients to pass in, for waste to pass out. They're also essential for hormone balance. As I said all the way through, they provide the building blocks for particularly steroid hormones, the fat-based hormones that we've talked about. So the cortisol, the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And the history of low fat in this country has led to a lack of consumption of good quality fats, which has a knock-on effect to our hormone balance. So good quality fats in our diet, whether it's from oily fish, whether it's from avocados, all absolutely crucial to help hormone balance come back into alignment naturally. And then antioxidants. So we talked about stress, and stress being the response to a situation. And internally, if things are out of alignment internally, if we've got inflammation starting to be set up in the system, then cortisol is going to be released in response to that stress internally. Now, our body undergoes, every metabolic process that our body undergoes leads to the release of products called free radicals. Now, free radicals are volatile molecules that need something to stabilize them. And so they will steal an electron from a healthy cell in order to stabilize themselves. Now, this in itself is a natural aging process because it's a natural metabolic process that we go through. However, when our diets were full of locally sourced green, dark fruits and vegetables, we were providing our bodies with enough antioxidants to keep that balance, that aging balance, that wear versus repair balance in alignment with all these good antioxidants that were neutralizing the free radicals. Now, because at least half of the population in the UK does not consume a single portion of fruit and vegetables on a daily basis, we've got far more free radicals being released now than we have got antioxidants that we're consuming in our diet. Now, the body is very sophisticated. It has 3 levels of antioxidant protection. It gets them from its food. It can, it's got those enzyme relationships that can produce antioxidants. But then we also manufacture antioxidants as well, like glutathione in the liver. So it's really, really important for life to have antioxidant protection, because if the free radicals are left to rule the roost, if you like, they will cause damage to the DNA deep down in the cell, and that's when the cell starts to replicate, send off the wrong messages, and we can start to see cancers and things like that developing. Those degenerative diseases that I talked about at the beginning, symptoms of the body not being nourished effectively, coming to the surface long after the damage has been done, basically. So good health really does rely on having the right balance of antioxidants and free radicals. So making sure that a client is consuming a really dark green leafy diet is crucial to provide the body with enough antioxidants, because that level of stress that we're constantly under means that we're speeding up our production of free radicals. We've got an increased amount of cortisol, and we need more and more antioxidants than. So the value to your clients of achieving optimal nutritional health is going to have a long-term knock-on effect to their hormone balance. It's going to give them longer-term health. It's going to give them better hormone balance, and it's going to give them greater energy levels, because all of the cells are going to be functioning effectively and producing energy at the right level. It's going to be able to get nutrients in, waste products out. If we reduce stress, get inflammation under control, then your clients are really going to start to see better hormone balance. getting cortisol levels down, getting blood sugar levels under control, and that will have a knock-on effect then to thyroid function, to estrogen, progesterone, to testosterone production. So every wellness professional should have easy access to uncomplicated and straightforward nutrition knowledge. So at Functional Nutrition Formula, we have created an online nutrition coaching program that allows you to grow your knowledge in a way that's right for you and at a time that's right for you. It's going to raise your professional reputation. It's going to broaden the service that you can provide for your clients. And not only that, it's going to increase your income because you're going to be able to provide a much more comprehensive service to your clients, not from just the physical side of things, but also from the nutrition side. We know that nutrition is 80% of the client results. So getting clear on your nutrition knowledge and your hormone knowledge is crucial if you're going to provide your clients with a better service. So at Functional Nutrition Formula, we've created a 4-module online nutrition coaching program that allows you to get to grips with the basics of nutrition that is going to help your clients on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, most of our clients just want to know how to lose weight, they want to know how to have more energy, they want to know how to sleep better. So what we've done is create this 4-module nutrition coaching program that looks at liver health, first of all, looks at digestive health, then looks at hormone balance, and a little bit of autoimmunity and inflammation in more detail, and then weight loss. And this is going to give you a rounded basis to being able to advise your clients and support your clients more effectively in helping them achieve optimal nutritional health, optimal hormone health. So do you want to help your clients achieve better results? Do you want to grow your nutrition knowledge and your reputation, understand more clearly what are the things that are going on in the 21st century that you really need to get more familiar with in order to get a better service for your clients? Helping your clients understand the importance of liver health is really going to help them get over any plateau. If the liver's working properly, if the hormones are in alignment, you're going to be able to get any client over any plateau. Believe me, you really are. And you're going to start exchanging less time for money because you're going to be able to provide a better service. So you're going to be able to charge more, and therefore you're going to be able to work less hours because you're bringing the same income in but having to see less clients because you can scale up your services basically. So the FNF Nutrition Coaching Program, the link to the Nutrition Coaching Program is with this email that we have sent this video in. But if you do want to write it down, it's there in front of you. But you can click through for more details and to access the course. And it's all online and you can do it at a time that's right for you. Get a certificate of completion at the end of it. So thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And if you do have any questions, go on to functionalnutritionformula.com and contact us through the contact section. Thank you. Bye-bye.